Welcome, my friends. Welcome. Here we are again. It's Sunday morning, and we're together, and I'm excited about it. Welcome to the Sunday Sermon with Reverend Riv. I am Reverend Riv. Thank you all for being here. Welcome, Bale. Welcome, anybody that's lurking. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. I do this because you guys seem to enjoy it, and I enjoy it too. It's been a lot of fun so far. This is our ninth sermon, which is kind of silly in its own right. And we're going to call this the season one finale. Next week we will be off. Going to be doing a big Mortal Kombat gaming stream at Black Lotus Pizza on Saturday. Got a big Memorial Day cookout planned for Sunday. Just got, no time for the stream next week. I think everybody should take the week off from our little church here and just enjoy this. Yeah, three, man. Three's the number, right? We always got to work with threes, so we just did a multiple of three. Jeez, look at you catching on. Or, you could take the six as the number of the beast, and then, uh-oh. Well, hopefully it's not, hopefully the frames thing fixes for you, Bale. I'm not seeing any issue on my stream, so, whoops, hold on. It did say we were having a little problem there. Let me see if I can adjust this. There we go. It seems to have stabilized. I hope it's stabilized on your end, Bale. It seems to have stabilized here. So we'll give it just a second and hope that we have fixed that issue. There we go. Yep, I think we're okay now. I'm not sure what that was, but always fun with technology. But yeah, so we're going to take next week off. So I kind of wanted to go out on a bang this week. So, in honor of our buddy Bale and his love of trigger warnings, let me present one here. We're going to talk about two different things today. We're going to talk about the Ark of the Covenant and kind of just some basics about what it was and maybe some theories on how it did what it did. And then we're going to dive off the deep end and go into a cursory, and I do mean cursory, we are not even deep diving here, on the atrocities committed by the Old Testament God, Yahweh. And I mean atrocities because what we're going to talk about today are not instances that are just the people didn't do what he said and he smote them, which kind of seems like an atrocity already to me. But these are instances where he specifically set the situation up so he could kill people. It's some of the most psychotic shit you're ever going to read. And if reading that or hearing someone honestly discuss what is written in the text and take it at face value and discuss if it seems effed up or not, if that's the kind of thing that is going to bother you, I would suggest that you leave. And that is not a reflection on you. I'm not judging you. I don't want to, I'm not trying to offend anybody. I want to make that really clear. But the text we're going to cover today is, in my view, and I think in the view of any rational person, indefensible. So I feel like we need to look at it, and we're going to talk about it honestly because that's what we do here. And so if that's the kind of thing that's going to rustle your jimmies, please don't let me ruin your Sunday. Just move on. There are better things for you to do. But now, with that little bit of housekeeping out of the way, let's dive in to talking about the Ark of the Covenant. There you see it right there. I mean, I feel like just about everybody with any frame of pop culture reference knows the Ark of the Covenant because of Indiana Jones. Raiders of the Lost Ark, for many people, that may have been their first real connection or introduction to the Ark of the Covenant. And the movie does a few things right. The ark that you see in front of you there is one artist rendering of it. The ark in the movie looked pretty good. One thing I always take issue with, is the top. If you look at the top of this one here, if I'm sure you've all seen Indiana Jones, I don't need to pull that image up for you. The angels on the top, they usually are depicted as having like two wings and they're pointed at each other. Those angels are supposed to be cherubim, which we covered cherubim, I think it was like the second or third Sunday sermon. We know that they have 6 wings and 4 faces, and they are the stuff of nightmares. Nobody ever makes an ark with scary fucking angels on the top, and I never know why. I looked. I deep dove on Google. I called friends, artists I know. Nobody ever renders the ark with scary cherubim on the top. And to me, it is one more way of us taking the biblical text, and see, it makes us sort of uncomfortable because cherubim, the way they're described, they're not pleasant to look at. But we want the ark to be pretty, and we want it to be beautiful. So we put these, anglicized, artistic, very steamy men with wings on the top and have them point at each other because it makes the ark more aesthetically pleasing. When aesthetically pleasing was not the point of this thing. So, let's dive in. And also bonus points if you get the joke on the slide there. So, alright, so what was the ark? It was a box. What's in the box? I'll tell you what's in the box. The box contained the broken tablets from the 10 Commandments, or if you look at some other texts, it contains the new tablets that Moses rewrote after he smashed the initial ones. I don't know if anybody remembers that story. I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. Moses, he goes up to Mount Sinai to talk to God. He's up there for 40 days. So he's up there for a minute. So he's up there in heaven, or he's up there at Mount Sinai, and he's talking to God. God's giving him the 10 Commandments. God tells him how to build the Ark of the Covenant. God is very specific. He uses cubits. I've taken those out and used numbers that we can all, get 3 3/4 feet long, 2 1/4 feet wide, 2 1/4 feet tall. It's made of, they call it shibit wood. That is acacia. So it's made of acacia wood, and then it's gilded on the outside. The top is made from solid gold with the 2 cherubim on the top. They call them a Hebrew word that I cannot pronounce. Thank you, Kurt, for pointing out that it does have 69 centimeters. But the word means the mercy seat. And the idea was that where those angels' wings meet, there's a slight void in between them. God would manifest himself there, and he would talk to the Israelites and tell them what to do. And they called that the mercy seat because you would, once a year, the high priest would go into the Holy of Holies, the room where this was kept in the Tabernacle, and sprinkle blood on it and offer a blood and incense offering to appease Yahweh so that he didn't get all smitey. Although, as we're going to talk about later, that does next to nothing because sometimes he gets smitey for just the sake of getting smitey. There's nothing you can do about this. Yeah, to appease the dragon. I will take a brief aside here. There was a very interesting video that was sent to me by a friend on YouTube that posits the idea that Yahweh was a dragon, a space dragon sent by the true God, El, who is the God that we come to know in the New Testament as the loving, cuddly God that doesn't want to smash everybody. And that Yahweh was a dragon who was sent to earth to guide the Hebrews by El. And that possibly the reason dragon mythology exists all over the earth is because El sent a bunch of different dragons to different groups of people to guide them. And that's why the Chinese have their dragon myths, and, the Hebrews talk about dragon. The guy uses a lot of logical leaps. He definitely takes the text and interprets it in a way that is beneficial to his thesis. That's called theology. That's just flat out. I'm not going to crucify the guy for that. It is really, it's really interesting, and I will post that video in the Discord. I've looked into the text, and he does not flat out lie at any point. He makes some assumptions. He takes some Hebrew words and translates them in very favorable ways. But as we've talked about on this show before, there are ways to translate the Bible that are, a lot of times these Hebrew words have several meanings, and you have to pick the one that you think fits the context. So he played fair. That's all I'm saying. It's an interesting video. But he posits that, this ark was kind of a homing beacon for the dragon, and that the dragon stayed in the tent with the ark, and it's a whole lot of crazy shit, but it's really interesting. But anyway, moving on. So we've got this ark. It's made... it's interesting in the Bible, there's kind of two arks described, and there's forever been a scholarly debate on where there are two arks or where they're one, because the one seems more like a plain box that Moses throws some shit in, which actually, if you think about it, would make sense. If they had just fled into the desert after the Exodus from Egypt, the idea that they've got the time to smelt all this gold and make this really ornate box seems kind of insane. But what we do know is that they apparently had time to smelt gold shit all the time. Because when Moses was at Mount Sinai, getting the schematics for the ark and getting the Ten Commandments and making the pact with God on, the Israelites becoming his chosen people, all that stuff, the Israelites got bored. They went to Moses' brother Aaron and were like, hey, we need a god, dude. Moses disappeared. He's probably fucking dead up there. What are we doing? So Moses says, all right, people like bulls, right? Bulls are cool. The Philistines had a bull god. He said, yeah, let's have a bull god. So he makes a golden calf, and they all start worshiping the golden calf. Moses comes out of the mountains with the Ten Commandments, and I don't know if you know commandment number 1, it's thou shalt have no other gods but me. So Moses gets there, they've already broken the rules that they didn't know they had to live by. Fair point there. Moses gets pissed, smashes the Ten Commandments. God then tells him, rewrite the Ten Commandments, put them in this magic box I'm going to tell you how to make. So whether there's one ark, whether there's two, this is the ark. So we're there. I want to tell you about the reverence they must have had for this thing. The rules surrounding the ark are complicated and detailed, and I'm speaking in comparison to all the other crazy rules we've talked about on this show. Those poles had to be 15 feet long to keep you from ever touching it. And when the ark was out and about, it was covered in a thick purple cloth. No one was allowed to look at it. The only person who was ever allowed to look at the ark was the high priest. And he got to do that once a year when he went in to pour the blood on the ark to hopefully keep God's murderous rage in check. What we got here? So my OneNote tab with commandments. Yes, you are Moses now. You have achieved Moses status. It's that easy. But so there were so many rules around this thing. Those poles it was never to be touched onto the ground. It was never to be placed in like a cart or anything for transfer. It always had to be carried. It was to be carried. In the Bible, they give very specific how many paces ahead of the people it has to be carried. And it has to have priests in front of it with trumpets and priests behind it with trumpets. I mean, they are super in to making sure that the reverence for this thing is duly noted. And it led the charge around Jericho. When we talked about Jericho and we talked about how they marched around it 7 times, this was at the front of that procession. It led the Israelite army into battle many times. And what's interesting about the Ark, too, is it seems to almost be a kind of bit of forgotten technology. Let's talk about that. We'll talk about that in just a moment. First, okay, so they got the Ark. They've left Egypt. They've gone into the desert. Mount Sinai. God gives Moses the specs, They build the ark. They've got the ark. This is their conduit to God now. They've got a shitload of rules about it. Well, they're camping in the desert for 40 years. It takes them 40 years to get from Egypt to Canaan. So, what do you do with the ark? You're lugging around this giant magical box in the desert. Well, you got to have a tent to put it in, right? Well, God's fairly specific about what he wants. In the book of Exodus, God tells them, you're going to build me a tabernacle. It will be 45 feet long, 15 feet wide, and 15 feet high. Wooden beams, I want those gilded. God is like Donald Trump in this regard. He puts gold on everything. So, the outer ledge there has 4 layers of animal skins. We're going to talk about this more in a minute because they're also very specific about what skins they can be. As you see the red part, that had to be ram skin that was dyed red. Then they also used some goat hair to make like almost like a blanket that they also put over top of it. Then there was another coat of ram skin, and then the outside was rainbow unicorn. I'm not making that up. We'll get there. The holy place was the first 30 feet of the tabernacle. That was where all the various accoutrements that were a part of worshiping Yahweh were placed. Also, any of the priests could enter into that room. It's like the first chamber there. It was separated from the outside of the tent by a veil, a 3.5-inch thick curtain woven of incredibly bright dyed yarns. It was red, there were purples, which, if we've talked about this, dyeing fabric was insanely expensive and labor intensive back then. So this thing is really and also 3.5 inches thick. That is a thick curtain. It's used to explain a great earthquake later in the book of Isaiah. They say that the temple veil was ripped in two, which, if you can imagine ripping a 3.5-inch curtain in half, that's like phone book tearing. That's some strongman shit. There's the golden lampstand inside, which most of us know today as a menorah. That was inside to worship Yahweh. There was a table. They provided him unleavened bread, like matzah balls, matzah crackers. And there was an incense altar. God loves the incense. It is constantly referred to in the Old Testament. God's about to flip shit. Somebody lights some incense to calm him down. We're going to talk about why they may have thought that in a moment. Then we've got the Holy of Holies. That is the back 15 feet of the tent. Now remember, we talked about those poles are 15 feet long, so it is just long enough to get the ark in, because those poles that the ark was carried on, they were never to be removed. Once they put them in there, you don't take them out. And so another veil was in front of that, and it had cherubim embroidered on it. That was kind of the final warning of like, hey, nobody's allowed back here. This is the ultimate employees only sign, except for, you want to put a tabernacle? Yes, that would be amazing. And so basically the only person who could go in there was the high priest. He went in there on the Day of Atonement, and he sprinkled blood on the altar and begged Yahweh to forgive them of all their sins. Yahweh would manifest himself there at the mercy seat and give the high priest instructions on what he wanted the people to do. And they would talk about that the high priest would literally glow like he was irradiated for days after meeting with Yahweh. Nobody else is allowed to go in there. In fact, one of the things that they did, this is a cool little side story, the priest had to have a rope tied around his right ankle. And when he went into the Holy of Holies, they would occasionally tug on the rope, and he would kick back with his foot to let them know he was still alive. Because if he went in there with anything but the most pious and open of hearts and in total reverence, God would strike him dead in there. And since nobody else was allowed to go in there to retrieve the body, they would have to drag him out by the cord tied around his ankle. That's how serious this shit is. So, that outer skin, The fucking unicorn? Yeah, there's a unicorn in the Bible. The outer skin of the tabernacle was to be made out of something called takash. That word has, if you read 20 different translations of the Bible, that word will be translated 20 different ways. Some people call it badger skin. I've seen it translated as porpoise skin. I don't know where they thought these desert dwelling people got porpoise skin, but apparently that was one guy's take on it. But if you go into the Midrash, which is one of the oldest versions of the Talmud and the Torah, they say that it was a single-horned kosher animal with a 6-colored pelt that was nearly 50 feet long. I can reconcile this with no animal that we've ever known that's lived, but I'm going with it because that's fucking awesome that the Bible has a 50-foot rainbow unicorn running around that if you can kill it, you can eat it and use its hide to make the tent for the most powerful, item on Earth. It's pretty crazy. So that's that. So I want to talk about the Ark for a minute and kind of see what you guys kind of just throw this out there. So the Ark, the story of the Ark is very strange. It starts off, it is the most powerful weapon. It's a weapon. It's not just a direct conduit to God. It's a talisman. If you get near it, it strikes you down. If you touch it, you die. If you don't show it reverence, you die. And it also, it's a good luck charm, for lack of a better term, when the Israeli army has it in front of them. When Moses is consulting with Yahweh through it, they're unbeatable. They're just wrecking people, storming across the Middle East, scorched earth policy. It's great. Well, all of a sudden, Moses dies eventually, and we notice that the Ark ceases to do amazing shit. It instead exists as like a relic. It did happen a fair amount back then. It did. And that was something that Yahweh was very specific about, was that the Ark itself was a conduit to him and, it shouldn't be worshipped. But there are some people that showed it too much reverence. And that's part of the reason that some people think it was hidden away so often, is that the idea of God was supposed to be what people were focused on, not the idea of this magical talisman, because, that was a big part of idolatry, was a physical, tangible representation of your God, which the Ark was not really supposed to be. The Ark was supposed to be a way of communicating with that God. But yeah, at the time, people definitely, there were Ark worshippers, for sure. And what it seems, though, is the Ark could have been, again, this is just, you want some ancient aliens theories? We got an ancient aliens theory here for you. The Ark very much could have been some kind of technology that the people did not quite understand, and that it seems to be that Moses and Aaron were really the only ones who got it, and that after they died, whether it was they didn't pass the knowledge down because, they thought it was too powerful, whether they didn't pass it down because they were being protective of it, because having the knowledge of how to work the Ark gave them status, or whether they died unexpectedly and just, maybe it was that the Ark was calibrated to just them. We don't know, but we do notice that the Ark, after Moses and Aaron are gone, in the time of Saul, in the time of David, in the time of Solomon, the Ark ceases to really have this supernatural power, and it seems to almost just exist as this relic that has a great emotional and psychological power over the Israelites. Yes, Aaron was the high priest. He was Moses' brother. But I've come up with another reason that it could have been. A very brilliant physicist, who was also an engineer, wrote use a pile of element zero. The other things that were in the Ark. Because there's actually, one of the things is, it's not just the tablets that are inside the Ark. Aaron had a staff that in a story in the Bible all of a sudden budded and began to grow flowers out of this staff, which of course should be impossible in a staff. We're never told why God thought this was like super cool to do, but God did it. That went in the ark. Also, the story of manna, which I'm sure at least some of you remember from Sunday school. The Israelites are starving to death in the desert. They've got nothing to eat. God makes it rain bread. That was manna. They apparently put a pot of manna in there too. So that's what's inside the ark. But this engineer noticed that the way the specifications were built for the ark, especially with the angels pointing towards each other. No, this is actually around 2800 BC. This is way back. Yeah, we're at about 26 to 2800 BC where we've got this ark. Excellent questions, I found. And so, until the French guy activated it. Yeah, this guy, this physicist, deducted that the ark could have been a rudimentary capacitor. And it makes perfect sense, because gold would definitely conduct. The acacia poles that you would have used to carry it would not have conducted. And what he talked about was how these conductors, when built correctly, which can be built rudimentary. I built a lightning jar when I was a kid using tin foil and jars and everything. You can basically pull static electricity out of the air and develop it into a charge that can make a spark that you can see. Well, they're in the fucking desert. It's windy in the desert. If you build this thing right, and then you burn incense near it, which will heat the air up next to it, guess what's going to happen? You're going to develop massive static charges that would manifest themselves as sparks between the tips of the angels. If you have no knowledge of electricity or basically any real science, it would be pretty easy to believe that that spark that was created in between those angel wingtips was the manifestation of God. Also, it would explain why if you touched it, you got fucking electrocuted, because it could build up huge charges of electricity. And yeah, you touch that gold, it's going to conduct right into you. Zap. You were just struck down by God. Also, that would explain why they had to put a blanket over top of it while carrying it out and about. You're carrying that out through the desert. The wind is whipping up. That thing is just generating immense amounts of static electricity and would have made it seem unwieldy. You put a nice goat hair blanket over it as a conductor, and boom, it's not generating all that nasty electricity that would scare the shit out of people. Is that what the Ark of the Covenant was? I have no idea. But it is a very valid and, to me, plausible thought. So I like it. So I just wanted to throw that out there to everybody. So the Ark disappeared. So then we get to the Ark. I apologize. I wasn't quite ready to go to this slide yet. So the Ark needs to be moved. We meet a guy named Uzzah. He was tasked with transporting the ark for David. Uzzah breaks a cardinal sin. What does he do? Instead of using the poles, he puts it in a cart. He's taking the ark for David. He loads it in an ox cart. The ox cart jolts. The ark, it looks like it's going to fall out. Uzzah reaches up and touches it, and that's what happens. Again, I know this is just a silly artist rendering, but can you see the idea of static electricity there? It really seems plausible. So, let's talk about our good buddies, the Philistines, and what happens to them when they play with the Ark. So, the Ark has started to lose some of its magic in that it seems that the Israelites don't know how to use it. They don't know. They take it out in front of battle, but we're not reading stories about it doing magical shit anymore. Maybe the ark is damaged, and they don't know. Because they didn't build it, they don't know how to fix it. We don't know. But Saul goes out to battle the Philistines. He takes the ark out with him. And Saul takes an ass whooping. The Bible says 30,000 Israelites died in this battle. Like, it did not go well at all for them. So, and the coup de grace, not only did they get routed on the battlefield, the fucking Philistines take the ark. And again, we don't know, did they knew to take it with the poles, or if they threw it on a cart too, and if so, why God didn't strike them down? All very good questions that are skipped over completely in the text, but they took it. We know that. It doesn't go well for them. First, they take it to the temple of Dagon in Ashdod. Dagon was kind of the chief god of the Philistines. He was like a fish guy, like a merman. They put the ark in front of a giant statue of Dagon in this temple. And it's kind of, like, hey, look at that. We stole your god. The next day, the temple workers come in and they find the altar of that Dagon has fallen down and the statue appears to be bowing down to the ark. That freaks everybody out, but they go, it's got to just be a mistake. They put the statue back. The next day, they come in and the statue of Dagon, the head has broken off. The whole thing has crumbled, and it's again laying face down in front of the ark. This is not a good sign. The priests are like, get this fucking thing out of here. So they take it to Gath. It's described in the text that pretty much the minute they get to Gath with this thing and set it down on the ground opens up and mice just everywhere. Mice infesting everything. They're eating all the stuff. It's a disaster. The people of Gath are like, get this fucking thing out of here. We don't want it. So they take it to Akron, and as soon as it gets to Akron, everybody gets tumors. At this point, everybody has had more than enough of their time with the ark and says, give it back to the Israelites. And as a token of, we're really sorry we did that, they go ahead and take they make 5 golden mice and 5 golden tumors. And they put it in the cart with these that they put the ark on, and they send it back to Israel with a, hey, please tell your God we're really sorry about that. And at that point, the Israelites get it back. It goes to the temple, and it pretty much stays in the temple until the temple is sacked by the Babylonians. Our buddy from last week, Nebuchadnezzar, the world destroyer, he sacks the temple, and the ark disappears from history. Some people claim that the Maccabees and have claimed that they took the ark and hid it in a mountain in Israel, and that it will only be found again when it's time for the true Mashiach to come and deliver the Israeli people from captivity. Other people claim the Babylonians took it back to Babylon and that nobody knows what happened to it. There are churches in Ethiopia that claim that it was smuggled to them, and there's actually been some people killed over which church has the real one in Ethiopia. It's a whole thing. But to this day, nobody knows where it is. If it's even still intact, it very likely was destroyed. So answering what it was will probably never happen. But I just wanted to, take a bit to talk about its power and its reverence, but also the fact that it very likely could have been basically a battery. It was a Tesla coil. And it was a magic dog and pony show that Aaron and Moses put together, and everybody followed them around and did what they said because they could control the magic box. I don't want it to sound dismissive, but that's as likely as anything else here. Is that, yeah, it's one of those things, it gets mentioned a lot in the Bible, and people, because of Raiders of the Lost Ark and stuff like that, they've heard of it, but they don't actually know what it is. So now we move to the spicy portion of today's sermon. we're going to talk about some absolute outright atrocities committed by the Hebrew God. And again, I do want to point out that there is some idea that maybe the guy that did all this shit isn't actually God. Maybe Yahweh was an emissary of God, and God is actually El, and that he is the loving, benevolent, kitty-cuddling guy that in the New Testament just wants you to love and be a good person. And that Yahweh was his uber-aggressive, heavy-handed taskmaster who got carried away in the Old Testament, and maybe God fired him because he's kind of a dick. So, without further ado, we bring you to our sermon, so affectionately titled, whoops, we may have, God shut down the stream. Affectionately titled, Love Me or Else, but even if you do, I might still kill you. Because that pretty much is what happens here. So, just to give you, this verse doesn't really have a lot other than it sets the tone for Yahweh. I will make my arrows drunk with blood, and my sword shall devour flesh with the blood of the slain and the captives from the long-haired enemy. He used his dragon powers. He fucked it up for a second. He definitely did. But yeah, that does not sound like the guy from the New Testament at all. Make my arrows drunk with blood, my sword shall devour flesh from the blood of the slain and the captives. I mean, it's baller. It sounds badass. What it doesn't sound is friendly or loving at all. So, we're going to talk about the flood. This was the first time God killed everybody. And I mean everybody except for the fucking 8 people on the ark. Now, every living thing that moved on land perished. Birds, livestock, wild animals, all the creatures that swam over the earth, and all mankind. Everything on dry land that had the breath of life in its nostrils died. Every living thing on the face of the earth was wiped out. People and animals and the creatures that move along the ground and the birds were wiped from the earth. Only Noah was left, and those with him in the ark. You know the story. God goes to Noah and says, hey, everybody sucks. Build a boat, get 2 of every animal, and get on the boat, because I'm fucking shit up. I'm hitting, Control-Alt-Delete on this planet. Noah, who's like 600 years old at this time, because that's just the whole thing, builds this completely structurally impossible boat, somehow magically gets 2 of every animal, macroevolution be damned. He gets them on this boat with his sons and their wives. They get on the boat, and it rains for 40 days and 40 nights, and everybody dies but them. Except for, apparently, a dove that brings back, Noah finally sets a dove out, and the dove comes back, and it brings him back a little shred of land to let him, a little branch to let him know that the waters are receding, and they can begin to repopulate the earth. Lovely. Now, this is everyone. God killed everyone on earth but 8 people. And you may be wondering, well, how many people was that? They make a big deal about being 2 of every kind. I've heard these dipshits, and I speak about them dismissively because that's what they are. Generally, what they try to go with is that, there could have been, if there's multiple kinds of penguins, for example, in their ridiculous world. So somehow he got the penguins that live in Antarctica and the penguins that live in Africa. And so it wasn't just 2 penguins, he had 4, and that's why there's 2 kinds of penguins. Duh, in your face, science. Yes, there was someone down south who made an ark replica, and they refused to accept the fact that it is completely structurally impossible. There's very simple math that you can do with bow to stern ratio to figure out if a craft will split the fuck in half when you put it in the ocean, and the ark would definitely split the fuck in half. Simpletons. And yes, all the animals. What did the animals eat? Nobody knows. God didn't tell them to worry about that. But I digress. So, how many people did God kill? I'm glad you asked. 1,656 years passed from the time of Adam and Eve to the time of Noah. We can use an exponential growth calculator to get a rough estimate of how many people would have been alive. Standard annual growth is generally thought to be about 0.4 to 0.5%, but that's in modern times. This was in the time of, multiple wives. Everybody's having lots of kids. And, so we get a few numbers. If we go with the absolute lowest growth estimator, which is very conservative, there were 23,000 people living on the earth. If there were 0.6, we had 120,000, 0.7, 600, and at 0.8. As you see, just slight increases in that growth rate, and you end up with a fuckload of people that God killed. Now, this is what part of the part. This is one of the parts that really gets to me. Because the Bible loves to try to throw in these little nuggets to make it seem like God's not the bad guy here and that he gave people a way out. I call bullshit. Okay? It's fucking bullshit. This was a psychotic, calculated genocide. This was not a whole, let me give them a chance. How do I know that? Well, let's look at the low number there. Let's say there were only 23,000 people on Earth at the time. Noah has to build this giant fucking ark. But yet we're also told that he goes out and tells people, hey, you better stop being dickheads or God's going to kill you. First of all, these people have no idea who this God is. Second of all, he hasn't given them, commandments or anything to live by yet. So how are they supposed to know that what they're doing is wrong in the eyes of God? There's been no standard set. But God doesn't care. He's pissed. Some people have theorized that God was pissed about the Nephilim, and that's what this is all about, is God was going to drown these abomination, half-breed, angel, and humans. Maybe they existed. If that was really what he's mad about, I'm pretty sure he had his smitey power. He could have just smitten them. But nope, he hit the fucking Control-Alt-Delete on everybody. So, let's say, again, we're saying there's only 23,000 people on the fucking planet right now. Moses builds this boat and goes out and tells people, you should come with me. God's going to save anybody who gets on my boat. Where was he going to put them on this fucking boat? If 1% of the population was like, yeah, you know what? Noah might be right. He's got 230 people he needs to fit on this fucking boat. The boat is already filled with all these animals. Now he's got to fit 230 people on it, not the 8 that he had planned. If the population's a little bigger, and again, we're at 1% of the people are like, yeah, you know what, Noah might be onto something here. Now he's got to fit 1,200 people in that boat. Did God give him plans to make the boat bigger? No. And as you see, it goes up. Could he have fit 62,000 people on the boat? Or 6,000 people on the boat? Could he have fit 32,000 people on the boat? No. God never had an out plan for these people. Those people were doomed the minute he told him to start building the boat. He never gave a fuck if they repented. He didn't care if they repented. That's just a way to try to make him not seem like a dick. That's all it is. It is fucking after the fact whitewashing. There is no way he actually counted on any of those people turning back from their wicked ways. He just doesn't want to seem like the angry kid who smashed his toy, so he says the toy was already broken. It's bullshit. We need to call it as such. Moving right along. The next time God gets all uppity, we remember Sodom and Gomorrah. We're not going to redo that whole story. We've already done that one. But the best estimates from historians is that approximately 65,000 people lived in Sodom and Gomorrah. We have discussed that while it was not homosexuality they were smitten for, it was probably their inhospitability to the poor and the foreigner. Something that this country should be severely fucking worried about, if that's the case. If you call yourself a Christian and you treat poor people like shit and you don't like foreigners, fuck you. God is basically telling you here he will rain down fire upon you. Maybe we need Yahweh back. Because as much as he's a psychotic asshole, in this case, he may have gotten one right. But either way, 65,000 people died. Are we really going to believe that every single person that lived in that city was a bad person? That every single person that lived in that city deserved to be consumed by fire? There's no way. There's absolutely no way. But again, what did the Bible do? If you remember our story, go, no, if there's 10 good people in the whole town, I won't destroy it. Then, what gets conveniently left out of when people recall that Bible story, there's no evidence that God ever gave them a chance to find the 10 good people. As soon as they got there, there's the whole incident with the guys at the gate, and then they're fleeing. Lot's wife is the first person to ever get salty, and the town is destroyed. So God makes this deal. If you can find 10 good people, I won't smite the city. And then we never are told, did they go about the city and even look for the 10 people? Again, it just seems like it's an attempt to... it's not my fault. It's not my idea to smash all those people. They're being dickheads, so I had to do it. 65,000 people. We got at least 20,000 killed from the flood. God's reaching six figures here. And again, both of these are, for the most part, unprovoked. They certainly were disingenuous in his chances to avoid destruction. He just, doesn't like to come off as the big angry asshole. Even though we're at 100K dead for no good reason, I'd say we have big angry asshole status. Moving right along. Does anybody know the story of Joseph? The man of many colors, had the Technicolor dream coat. Well, Joseph was kind of a dick. He was Daddy's favorite, and his brothers didn't dig that shit at all. So we're told it was just over jealousy, but I did get this shirt from Joseph. This is the Joseph collection. But his brothers whoop his ass and throw him in a pit because they can't stand him. And then they sell him to slavery in Egypt. I kind of think you got to be a dick to have that happen. I don't think it's just that you're mom or dad's favorite. So they whoop his ass. He ends up in Egypt. In Egypt, we get the Egypt story. It is like the ultimate upward ascension arc in character history. Everything Joseph does just comes up Millhouse. Until he gets a rape charge. The Bible tells us that this is totally a trumped up rape charge. Well, what do we know? The Bible lies about a lot of shit. Maybe Joseph was an asshole. He's been deemed an asshole earlier. But either way, Joseph is now sitting in jail on an allegedly trumped up rape charge. While he's in jail, the jailer tells Joseph about these weird dreams he's having. Joseph is able to satisfactorily interpret the dreams for this guy. And word gets out that, hey, this dude in the jail, he might have like magic powers or some shit. The Pharaoh has a really fucked up dream. That's part of the image on your screen there. The Pharaoh has a dream that 7 large, well-fed cows emerge from the Nile River. And then after that, 7 skeletal, emaciated cows emerge from the river and eat the 7 well-fed large cows. Knowing that Joseph is known as a guy who can interpret dreams, he goes to Joseph. And he's like, hey, brings him into talk to me. What does that dream mean? None of my guys can tell me what it means. Joseph says to him, well, King, you're about to have 7 really good years of harvest. And then you are going to have 7 brutal years of famine. And if you don't use those 7 great years of harvest to store up your supplies and stockpile everything, you're going to really be hurting during the 7 years of famine. The Pharaoh goes, this fucking guy knows what he's talking about. You're in charge of everything. So what happens? Sure enough, and the 7 years of famine began, just as Joseph had said. There was famine in all the other lands, but in the whole land of Egypt there was food. When all Egypt began to feel the famine, the people cried to Pharaoh for food. The Pharaoh told all the Egyptians, "Go to Joseph and do what he tells you." When the famine had spread over the whole country, Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold grain to all the Egyptians, for the famine was severe throughout Egypt. And all the world came to Egypt to buy grain from Joseph because the famine was severe everywhere. Yeah, God created a worldwide famine for the specific purpose of elevating Joseph. That is how this text is almost always taught to kids, is that Joseph, God wanted Joseph to be special. So God killed a whole bunch of people with a famine so that Joseph could be elevated in status. And yeah, notice that. They came and bought the food from Joseph. Joseph didn't distribute food to starving, hungry people out of benevolence. Joseph made bank. Joseph went from a guy sitting in jail on a rape charge to the most powerful dude in all of Egypt, rivaling the power of the Pharaoh. Again, but the collateral is all the people that died from a fucking 7-year famine. I can't talk today. And we're just supposed to gloss over that as like, yeah, these people died, but hey, Joseph, he's the star of the show. Fuck all those extra people. Yeah, Joseph is Tony Stark minus Iron Man. He's a rich dickhead who doesn't have an Iron Man suit. Now, we're going to get into one that I feel like, again, most people know, but we're going to take a look at, again, the psychotic aspect of this story, because there's no other way to look at this than just it's completely psychotic. We're going to call it the 10 Plagues, a.k.a. Captain Overkill Strikes Again. Now, let's go back for a second. So, we all know the 10 Plagues, right? Like, it's like Bible 101. It's pretty cursory. The Egyptians have enslaved the Israelites. By most accounts, the Israelites have been enslaved there for about 400 years. And God has decided it's time to go. We're leaving. So he tells Moses and Aaron, go to the Pharaoh, say, I said let you go. And if he doesn't let you go, I'm going to fuck shit up. That is God's deal. Let them go, or I'm going to fuck shit up. So he's giving Pharaoh an ultimatum. But he's not. How do I know? But I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and though I multiply my signs and wonders in Egypt, he will not listen to you. Then I will lay my hand on Egypt, and with mighty acts of judgment I will bring out my divisions, my people, the Israelites. And the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord when I stretch out my hand against Egypt and bring the Israelites out of it. What is that saying right there? I will harden Pharaoh's heart. God is literally saying, go ask him to let you go and tell him that it's a threat. If he doesn't let you go, I will fucking kill them. But I'm going to make sure that he doesn't listen to you so that I have an excuse to kill everybody. There is no other way to read that. That is exactly what that says in plain English. I'm not reading anything into the text. I'm not reading anything into that. I will harden Pharaoh's heart. I will make sure that he doesn't listen to you so that I get to do this awesome shit I cooked up. It's psychotic. There's no other way to look at that. Giving someone an ultimatum with a threat of violence if they don't comply, but then forcing them to not comply. Free will is out the window here. The Pharaoh has no free will. It has been predetermined that he is going to suffer. Yeah, the dragon theory is starting to sound real plausible. So, we know that there are the 10 plagues, right? Everybody knows there's 10 plagues. What I don't think most people know is those 10 plagues are a lot more than just awful ways to torment a populace. These 10 plagues are psychological in their torment as well, because each plague corresponds to an Egyptian god, and it is basically God teabagging, the Israelite God teabagging each one of these gods. It is literally, if God was a Fortnite player, he is the one who would shoot you from behind and then dance on top of your corpse. That is the kind of guy we're dealing with here. So, our 10 plagues, I said they corresponded with, again, psychological warfare. Not just is he horrifically maiming the people of this populace, but he's also fucking with their belief system. First plague, he turns the water to blood. Well, Hapi was the god of the Nile. So the Nile River completely turns to blood. People have no fresh water. This lasts for a week. I'm going to go out on a limb and say some people died without access to fresh water for a week. So already people have died. And remember, Pharaoh never had a chance to say no to this because God didn't give him free will. And there's been, if we want to try to find an analog to this, there are scientists who believe that a red algae bloom could have happened, which would have killed everything in the Nile, would have turned it red, very possibly could have happened. And magically, when Aaron takes his staff and sticks it in the water after a week, because the Pharaoh begs them to, the water clears up. But then God hardens Pharaoh's heart again, because he's the kid who likes pulling wings off of flies. Next, frogs everywhere. Just everywhere. Not completely awful, just really a nuisance. But also, there's Heket, the fertility goddess. She has a frog head. So naturally, the Egyptians would have been praying to her, like, what's with all these frogs? Help us out. And nothing. Just frogs everywhere. Then magically, the frogs don't bother the Israelites, and Moses, waves his hands, the frogs go away. Then there's lice. Well, it's explained that the lice literally seem to just come up out of the ground and just infect the Egyptian people. Again, the Israelites are spared of this. It's a whole big thing. Flies. Flies everywhere in everything. Khepri is the god of rebirth. She has a fly head. So again, it seems like God is targeting these specific views that these people have to torment them. Then all the livestock die. Their goddess of love has a cow head. So again, just watching all their livestock drop dead, this would be traumatic for these people. This would absolutely scare the shit out of them. And again, people are probably starving now. God's not concerned with that. Then boils and sores that just can't be explained. Everybody is writhing in pain and miserable. They obviously would have prayed to Isis, their goddess of medicine. No relief came. The people are howling in pain. Pharaoh says, nope, not letting them go. Because God won't let him let them go. Then hail comes from the sky, and they even describe some of the hail as flaming. So it could have been a meteor shower or something to that effect. But again, absolute terrifying. Nut, the goddess of the sky, would have not been able to help them. Then we get locusts. They come. They eat everything. They're eating all the grains. Nobody's got food now. Again, we're starving to death. Then an eclipse happens. And this, despite all that other shit seeming really bad, this would have been the one that fucking terrified them the most. Ra was the head god. If Ra goes away, that would have terrified them. Now, we believe the Egyptians had a fairly decent knowledge of cosmology and astrology. They would have understood eclipses to an extent. But if an eclipse that they had not calculated happened, it would have terrified them, because it literally would be them watching their god turn their back on them. At this point, people are freaked the fuck out, but still, God won't let Pharaoh let them go. And so the final coup de grace, he kills the firstborn child of every family in Egypt. Historians estimate that if this story is true, 500,000 young people died. God killed 500,000 kids overnight. And to this day, Israel celebrates this. Hebrews celebrate Passover. So I want you to think about that. I'm not shitting on the Jewish faith at all. I love Jewish people. I used to work at a Jewish school. They're wonderful people. But just take a minute the next time you think about the Passover and think about the fact that what the Israelites are celebrating is that God killed 500,000 kids to prove a point, not to free them. He did not do that to free them. He could have had Pharaoh free them way before that. This was God killing 500,000 kids to prove he could. That is the definition of psychotic. There's no other way to look at this. You are pro-nut. Next, let's get to the legend of Korah. Who is Korah? Korah is a really interesting character in the Bible that almost nobody ever talks about. He was an elder and a leader among his social group. He was of the tribe of Levi, which if you remember from some of our earlier episodes, the tribe of Levi is the tribe that were supposed to become priests. With the support of 250 men, he confronts Moses and Aaron. Now, most of these men that come with him, they are Reubenites. They are from the tribe of Reuben. Why is that important? Reuben, each one of the 12 tribes, is one of the children of Jacob. And his 12 sons became the 12 tribes. The oldest one was Reuben. In any other universe, that would make you the most important son. That's just how it worked back then. Yet, the tribe of Reuben enjoyed no special privileges, and that was something that was constantly kind of an issue. His dispute with Moses is both political and dogmatic. He doesn't like who Moses has chosen to be a priest and feels like it should be somebody from his family too. Obviously, the priesthood is a path to power, and Moses did not appreciate that, Korah did not appreciate that his family was kind of passed over in this. It's also dogmatic, and I think the dogma is very interesting. He's the first guy, pre-Martin Luther, pre-everybody, this is the first guy to say, hey, why do we need you guys to talk to God? Why can't, we talk to God? Why can't just anybody talk to God? What makes you, Moses and Aaron, you guys are like kings. You are in charge. Why are you in charge? Little side note, this is years into the Exodus. Now, the Israelites, they left Egypt, they went to Canaan. That trip is 5,000 miles. So even moving at a very slow 5-mile-a-day pace, they should have been there in less than 3 years. It took them 40 years to get there because they zigged and zagged and all over the desert because they were following the cloud of smoke. Maybe there was a dragon inside there. They were following him around the desert, and that's why it took them 40 years. And some of the people were like, dude, why are we fucking following you? You clearly don't know where you're going. You didn't map quest it, Moses. Why are we wandering around in the desert? And who put you in charge? I don't like it. So he raises some fair criticisms, I think. So Korah, son of Itzar, the son of Kohath, son of Levi, and certain Reubenites, Dathan and Abiram, sons of Eliab and On of Peleth, became insolent and rose up against Moses. With them there were 250 Israelite men, well-known community leaders who had been appointed members of the council. They came as a group to Moses and Aaron and said to them, "You have gone too far. The whole community is holy, every one of them, and the Lord is with them. Why do you set yourself above the Lord's assembly?" I mean, again, he's asking the fairly, I think, fair question of, what makes you so fucking great? Why are you in charge, not us? Maybe he's in charge because he knows how to work the ark. Maybe. So, they decide that, you know what? We're going to start our own temple. We don't need you. God responds to this as only God can. Then, but notice, watch Moses again. Remember that whole thing about not wanting to be the bad guy? Moses has this in spades. Then Moses said, "This is how you will know that the Lord has sent me to do all these things and that it was not my idea. If these men die a natural death and suffer the fate of all mankind, then the Lord has not sent me. But if the Lord brings about something totally new, and the earth opens its mouth and swallows them with everything that belongs to them, and they go down alive into the realm of the dead, then you will know that these men have treated the Lord with contempt." And as soon as he finished saying all of this, the ground under them split apart, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them and their households, and all those associated with Korah, together with their possessions. They went down alive into the realm of the dead, and with everything they owned, the earth closed over them, and they perished and were gone from the community. And their cries, and all the Israelites around them fled, shouting, "The earth is going to swallow us too." And fire came out from the Lord and consumed the 250 men who were offering the incense. So, again, they're like, "Hey, God loves incense. We can offer God incense too. We don't have to wait for you to do it, Moses." God killed all 250 of them, as well as all of these other people and their families, because they asked the question of, why is Moses in charge? And again, Moses here says, hey, if God doesn't kill you, then I guess I'm not in charge. And that's supposed to be treated as, an objective test of his leadership, as well, if you don't all get swallowed up by the earth. Interesting story. There are certain tours that you can take in the Holy Land where they will take you to the spot where they claim this happened, and that there is a split in the desert, and there is an old story that if you take a wet sponge and put it in the split rock, the water will immediately be soaked out of it, and then when you put the sponge to your ear, you can hear voices saying in ancient Aramaic, "Moses was right, he is the chosen of God." I don't believe any of that, but it's kind of an interesting story. So we've had this massive thing. The earth opened up, killed all these people. 250 people are struck with fire. And everybody else rightly responds, "What the fuck, Moses?" The next day, the whole Israelite community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. "You have killed the Lord's people," they said. But when the assembly gathered in opposition to Moses and Aaron and turned toward the tent of meeting, suddenly the cloud covered it, and the glory of the Lord appeared. Then Moses and Aaron went to the front of the tent, and the Lord said to Moses, "Get away from this assembly so I can put an end to them at once." And they fell face down. Then Moses said to Aaron, "Take your censer and put incense in it, along the burning coals from the altar, and hurry to the assembly to make atonement for them. Wrath has come out from the Lord. The plague has started." So Aaron did as Moses said, and he ran into the midst of the assembly. The plague had already started among the people, but Aaron offered incense and made atonement for them. He stood between the living and the dead, and the plague stopped. But 14,700 people died from the plague, in addition to those that had died because of Korah. Then Aaron returned to Moses at the entrance of the tent of meeting, for the plague had stopped. Yeah, Joel Osteen loves this guy. No shit. Yeah, so these people said, hey, maybe you shouldn't have, had the earth swallow all those people down. You could have, made a star twinkle or something and shown people, if you wanted to demonstrate you were God's chosen one, you didn't have to do it by mass murder. And God responded with, "Oh yeah? Fuck you, plague." 14,700 people died. This is psychotic behavior. There's no way around it. No way around it. But I want to end with the little light at the end of the tunnel of this story, which is why I think Sons of Korah would be a badass doom man name. The son of Palu was Eliab, and the sons of Eliab were Nemuel, Dathan, and Abiram. And Dathan and Abiram were the community officials who rebelled against Moses and Aaron and were among Korah's followers when they rebelled against the Lord. The earth opened its mouth and swallowed them along with Korah, whose followers died when the fire devoured the 250 men, and they served as a warning sign. The line of Korah, however, did not die out. So even though our big angry God claims he was going to wipe them out, and swallow them up into the earth and all this shit. Still, he didn't kill all of them. So, even with all of his genocide and all of his rage murders, he didn't wipe them out. And Christians will tell you that that is a sign of benevolence. You should then take the Bible that they're holding in their hand and smack them with it if they want to look at that as a sign of benevolence. It's not benevolent to only kill 95% of someone's lineage. It's just not. These are just some of the atrocities committed by Yahweh in the Old Testament. I could do a 5-hour marathon if we went through everything in the Old Testament that are just psychotic behavior. I mean, the 10 plagues one really gets me because it flat out says right there that God hardened his heart. God basically was like, nah, you don't get to say no because I want to fuck you up. I don't know how to reconcile that with a loving, just God, other than the idea that Yahweh and El are two different beings, and that El is the God of love, and that even maybe he was busy. And then when he realized what Yahweh had been getting up to, it was like, dude, you are nuts. You're out of here. Maybe that's what happened. I'd certainly like to believe that cooler heads prevailed. Although now I think most people would say we're probably back to the absentee God if that's the case. That El just doesn't really want to get involved. So, you can have a crazy genocidal psycho, or you can have an absentee landlord. Apparently those are the two you get. So, what I would suggest you do is just be good. Just be decent. Love the foreigner. Love the poor. Then he can't get mad at you for that one. Burn some incense, because, well, maybe he'll get mad and maybe he won't. Just do it in the right way. Not that we know what that way is. But, yeah, just be a good person. That's all I can go for. Just be a decent person. So thank you all for being here. I hope you've enjoyed this first season. I know I have. And so we're going to take next week off. And then we'll be back the week after that with a little bit different format. It's going to look a little different. We're going to do things a little different. I promise it'll still be the same at its core. It's going to be me trying to make sense of the insane things in this book that changed the world for better in some ways, for worse in others. And maybe if we can look at this book and realize that this is not the be-all, end-all of morality, and that maybe, just maybe, if the standard for being God is this low, that we should all aspire to be better than that. So I challenge you to be better than Yahweh. It really shouldn't be that hard. Thank you all for being here. I truly appreciate the time you spend with me. And I want you all to have a great Sunday. Do something good for yourself and do something good for someone else.